Now in this video, I'm going to do a live demonstration of somebody who is 41 years old and they may think that they have waited a little bit too long and have the fear that I have 1, 2, 3 kids now to think about and I have no life insurance and it's probably going to be super expensive, so I'm not going to be able to afford that death benefit that I really need and desire to leave behind for them. So I'm going to show you that it's not always that worst case scenario, especially if you have something like 3 different medications, which I'm going to do a live demonstration of in just a moment. So when I say that I need to have a holistic conversation with someone about their life insurance, what I mean is this. I'm not always going to look at a number. I'm going to look at the entire situation, because just getting a quote is actually one of the most dangerous ways to buy life insurance. And here's why. Because a quote only tells you what something costs. It doesn't tell you if it actually fits your life. It doesn't account for your goals, your family, your debt, your income, or what you're even trying to accomplish long term. So if I know the more details of your health history, the more accurate the quote will be. Okay, so let's do a little recap here. We're going to do a live quote for a 41-year-old male with 3 different medications. And the fear and the concern would be that insurance is just going to be way too expensive, considering that we now have 3 medications on the boat. So that's not always going to be the case. So let's get into it here. So over here, on the screen, what you're going to see is that let's focus on the state of Illinois. That doesn't quite matter. Let's say that we're looking for a $350,000 amount. And we could toggle between 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. For quoting purposes, it doesn't quite matter. And you could alter and change that, on the next few screens here. So I'm going to stick it at 25-year terms. I have the options to quote with riders or, with no riders. And I could also do that on the next few screens as well. So we're going to continue with no riders. So we're about to personalize the quote. And we're going to go and list all of the medications and answer a lot of the questions. And this is going to be the pre-underwriting status. And I could quote 5 different companies here. And they're going to come back and they're going to tell me what is going to be the fastest underwriter. And we're also going to see that it may not be that standard rate. It could be a preferred rate. It could be a preferred plus rate. So for this quoting purposes, let's say this individual is going to be 5'10", 190 pounds. So 5'10", 190 pounds. Yes, they are a permanent citizen. For the tobacco question, in this example, we're going to hit no or never. For the marijuana question, we're going to hit never. And then here's some of the common health questions. So in the initial conversation, I'm getting all the details and how everything's going to be, controlled or how it's being used. So we said this individual was going to have high cholesterol. So the last cholesterol reading is something that, I'm going to need to know. So if I know that either it's less than 200, 200 to 240, or 241 or higher, then let's put it at less than 200. And that would be with the medication and the condition is kind of controlled and it's just, reoccurring doctor visits, but you take this medication on a daily basis. And we're going to say it's 1 medication for the high cholesterol. And then the next condition is going to be high blood pressure. So some of the questions that I would already be asking is, what is the systolic, what is the diastolic, and how many medications? So let's say it's between 121, 125, and the diastolic is going to be 81 to 85. And the number of medications is going to be 1. We're going to go on to the next set of questions here. And here where it's going to ask, is there any medications for ADHD, ADD, atrial fibrillation, autoimmune disease, cancer, colitis, GERD, heart conditions, PTSD, self-harm, or none of the above. But we said we were going to say that this individual was on ADHD medications. And how many times has the proposed been admitted to the hospital for this condition? Let's say 0. And the number of medications, let's say 1. Have you been treated for this condition in the past 12 months? It's like, are you hospitalized? Are you going through, any major treatments? And typically with ADD, ADHD, that's not the case. The rest of these are no. Then it's going to go down and ask, has the proposed insured biological mother or father been diagnosed with heart disease, cerebral vascular disease, cancer, or diabetes before the age of 70? We'll hit no for that. And then the next question is, has the proposed insured biological siblings been diagnosed with heart disease, cerebral vascular disease, cancer, or diabetes before the age of 50? We're going to hit no for that. Now the next set of questions here is going to deal with DUIs, traffic tickets, major violations. So we're going to hit no for no DUIs in the last 10 years, no more than 2 moving violations within the year, the last 2 years, and have you had your driver's license suspended or revoked? We'll hit no. Have you been convicted of a felony, being charged with a felony, or are you currently on parole or probation? We'll click no. The last question has to do with key man insurance, which is where a business owner or 2 different business owners or partners within a company would get life insurance on each other. In the event that they would pass away, that insurance would go ahead and buy out the other. And that's not this scenario, so we're going to hit no. Now we're going to see the quote. So this tool that I have here, we initially put it in 350,000. I could bring the scale, this way, that way. I could alter it here to take a look at the different prices. And also the policy length. I could see, we chose a 25-year, but I could see what a 10-year, a 15, a 20, 25, 30, 35, and even 40. But for right now, we're going to focus on 25 years. So the lowest price here is $42.19. Now when we go down here, I want to point this out, is that Banner Life is coming back at a preferred non-tobacco rate, which is great. Where Corbridge is coming back at a standard non-tobacco, and Pacific Life is the standard non-tobacco as well. And there's certain reasons why Lincoln or Mutual Health or North American is not available, because I can tell you right away, North American, they don't do 25-year terms, but if I selected a 30-year term, it would show up. So now we have these 3 companies to choose from, and Banner Life, which is one of the more easier companies to work with, especially as far as underwriting, we have somebody who has 3 different medications. Their height and weight is within that standard rating, and they're still going to get the preferred non-tobacco. Now, this is pre-underwriting, so after underwriting, that could change, but they're saying based on how you answered those pre-underwriting questions, this is how these 3 companies would result in that final class rating. So Banner Life, preferred non-tobacco, Corbridge, standard non-tobacco, and Pacific Life, standard non-tobacco. Now what's interesting here is what I have available to me is it says here instant/AU. What does that mean? That means that there is a possibility, based on these questions with these 3 medications, that this person can apply for a 25-year term at $42.19 a month, or annually $496.41 a month within 10 days. So if I click on this drop-down menu here, it's stating that based on the questions that we asked, that we could apply all the way up to $4 million in coverage and still have these same numbers of approval ratings. And it doesn't say that you can't apply for more than $4 million. It's just saying based on this information, up to $4 million, there is going to be an 81% chance based on how we answered these questions that is going to be accelerated. Accelerated meaning it's going to be 22 days of an underwriting process. And now out of that 81%, 31% is going to have the potential to be instantly approved within 10 minutes or less. And 84% issued as applied for when using these pre-underwriting questions. Now, if we want to take a look at Corbridge is saying that you could apply based on these questions up to $1 million in coverage, and 40% of those approved cases are going to be accelerated. And 28 days is how long that accelerated is going to take. And 65% of the people who apply based on these underwriting questions are going to be approved. And if we take a look at Pacific Life is stating that You could apply up to $3 million, and 26% of these approved cases are going to be accelerated. How long is the accelerated process going to be? Typically, it's going to be about 19 days. And 66% of the people applying based on the data that we already put in are going to be issued as applied at that standard non-tobacco rate. Now, when comparing these three, there is a nice significant difference, 42, 63, and 67. Again, Banner Life is there for somebody who just wants a simple term. And at $42.19, that's definitely the way that I would encourage my clients to go through. So another tool that I want to go through is the policy length. So I said if I clicked on 30 years, then North American is going to apply there. So I could click on 30 years. And now we're going to have a new set of options. Now Lincoln, they have two different types of term products, and North American are going to be available here as well. North American, it's worth noting that this is a company with living benefits where you can pull from the death benefit. So for example, if you had a diagnosis of a cancer and you apply for a $350,000 policy, you can pull $50,000 at least, and in some states it's up to 90% of that death benefit, but you could get a check if you get diagnosed with something like a cancer or a critical illness, and you could at least have $50,000. And what is the significance of that? So imagine you have a situation where you do get your worst case scenario and you got diagnosed with something like a cancer. Well, you're going to be able to pull from your death benefit of $350,000. You're going to be able to pull at least 50 grand, and that's a tax-free benefit to you to go ahead and pay for the treatments, pay for the deductibles, pay for the monthly premium, pay to keep your lights above your head because you may not be working. That's why it's so important always to take a look at a plan with living benefits. So in this example, we're just talking about straight terms, and we could take a look if somebody wanted to apply for a 10-year term, it could be as low as $18.89 with Banner Life. If we wanted to go ahead and take a look at what $500,000 was, and that may be the case when we have these conversations about what your needs and goals are. And you may be thinking, hey, my budget is $100 for a term because I think I have 3 different types of medications. It's going to be pretty expensive. So I'm going to set the bar really high. But here you might find that it's not that expensive. We're going to go ahead and back and click on the 25-year term. And now we have it at $52.92 for Banner Life, where Corebridge and Pacific Life are still also very good options for that budget of $100, and you could still pack in a whole lot more. But imagine that you do have that budget, and now you're thinking, oh, I could get more and more. And, I could cram more of a death benefit in there. Let's take a look at what $1 million costs. So even for $1 million with 3 different types of medications, somebody can go ahead and apply and possibly be approved in 10 minutes up to about 22 days at the rate of $98.46. So this is why we need to have these holistic conversations when we first initially speak, because I always tell my agents that the clients, they don't know what they don't know until they know. And that's why I like to spend a little bit of time. This could be a very fast process, but I like to make sure that all questions are answered and that you know everything that is available to you. So on a side note, we have more than just 5 different companies to work with. We have up to about 32 different life insurance companies to work with. But this quote here is going to spit out the top 5 companies to work with as far as the ease of underwriting. So when we have that holistic conversation, what I need to know as an agent is, what is the diagnosis? How has that been treated? What medications are you taking? How long have you been taking those medications? And has there been any hospitalization, for that condition? But if it's a typical condition like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, the underwriters are very at ease as long as everything else and no hospitalization, and you're able to continue to, go to work and do the daily living functions and just live a normal life, you're just taking routine medications, it's not always that worst case scenario. And that's why I wanted to make this video and really express it. So those holistic conversations are very, very important. And when I sit down with you, you could take a look at all the different options. We could take a look at different coverage amount, different policy length. We could add on additional riders, onto the plan, and we could see which underwriting company is going to be the best fit. Now, once you do apply, I'm going to need to know some really basic information, maybe some additional questions that go a little bit more in depth based on what I asked already. We're going to submit the information of the doctors, the social security numbers. You don't have to submit payment just yet, but then you'll go into that underwriting process. And after that, what could happen? Let's say that it's not an instant approval. Well, the insurance companies, and it doesn't matter who it is, with traditional underwriting, what they're going to need to do is they may need to ask additional questions. They may need to get you on the phone to just clarify certain things. There may be a blood test that may be needed, where a nurse would, come to your home, take, the additional tests, put you on a scale, make sure that everything is lining up with the application. And then after about a week or so, the results will be in, and then the underwriters will take a few additional days after they receive all that data to make their final decision. And then I would give you a call and give you the great news that you were approved at that preferred non-tobacco, and it didn't have to be that standard rate or that standard rate with a few additional tables added onto it. So if you have any questions, any concerns, always feel free to reach out. I hope you guys learned something today, and I'll see you on the next video.